Alright, for this video, we wanted to walk through how to read your Form W-2 wage and tax statement for the year. So we've got a sample W-2 here for an employee that was provided to the employee, and this information is sent to the IRS. And it has some of the more common items that we see on a Form W-2. So we'll go through the Form W-2, each box, and discuss each item. And then we also have a sample form 1040 here for the same taxpayer, and we'll have a look at how each item gets reported on the 1040, or if it's not reported at all, why is that? So if we start on the left hand side here, this is pretty straightforward information, right? We have the Social Security number of the employee, the EIN or the tax ID number of the company that was the employer, and then the employee's information in box E and F. Now, in boxes 1, 3, and 5, we start to see some of the compensation here. So box 1 are the wages that were paid to the employee. So this is total compensation that is subject to federal income taxes. Boxes 3 and 5 are the amount of compensation that was subject to payroll taxes, so Social Security wages and Medicare wages. Now, what you notice here is there is a difference of $3,000, right? So we have $82,000 in federally taxable wages and $85,000 in Social Security and Medicare. Why is that? Well, there's a lot of things that could be the reason for the variance there, but the most common one we see is what's reported down here in box 12, code D, the $3,000, which are 401k contributions. So when you are covered by a retirement plan at work and you make contributions to your 401k plan, that is called a pre-tax deduction. So you can deduct it from your wages before reporting those amounts on your federal income taxes. However, it is not a pre-tax deduction for payroll taxes. So in this example here, let's say the gross wages were $85,000. That's all being subject to Social Security. But the amount that gets actually subject to federal income tax is only the $82,000 because we have a $3,000 pre-tax deduction for 401k contributions. Now, as far as what gets reported on the return, box 1 wages is what is reported up on line 1. So on line 1A, we have the total amount from forms W-2, box 1, and so there we see our $82,000 figure. The $85,000 Social Security wages, Medicare wages, those are relevant information to see ultimately, how much Social Security taxes and Medicare taxes were withheld, but the $85,000 figure doesn't actually get reported on the return. Right? Now, box 2, we have federal income taxes withheld. So these are the amount of taxes withheld by your employer and sent to the IRS that covers your federal income tax liability. So the $9,000 figure here is effectively the credit you get for taxes that were paid throughout the year by the employer. So the $9,000 amount is reported on page 2 of the 1040 in the payment section, lines 25A. So here we have line 25, federal income tax withheld from forms W-2. There's our $9,000 figure. So when we have our total income taxes calculated here, in this case he owes $10,274. He gets $9,000 as a payment credit for what was already withheld throughout the year. And so the net amount that he owes is reported down there on line 37. Okay, and so the boxes 4 and 6, Social Security and Medicare taxes withheld. The Social Security rate for this year is 6.2% on Social Security wages, and the Medicare tax withheld 1.45%. Now, if your wages are higher and you exceed the Social Security wage limit, then the Social Security wages withheld would be capped out, and then the Medicare wages is a different story, right? So we have a new requirement over the last few years where employers are required to withhold an additional 0.5% on the Medicare tax withheld if your wages exceed a certain threshold. But in this case here, for our example, John is well below all of those thresholds. So we just simply take 6.2% of the Social Security wages, 1.45 of the 5 box 5 wages of $85K. Now back to lines 12. So box 12, code D, again, that's the 401K contributions that were made by the employee during the year. Box 12, code DD, the $4,800 there, that is the cost that the employer paid for your health insurance. Now, this is non-taxable, right? So the employer can pay for your health insurance, and it is not a taxable fringe benefit to you. So it's still reported on the W-2, but this information doesn't get reflected anywhere on the return because it's not taxable to you. Now, the other item we have here is box 12, code W. So box 12, code W has to deal with HSA contributions. So HSA contributions, HSA stands for Health Savings Account. These are contributions that can be made by you or your employer or both. And to the extent that they were paid by the employer or paid by you or the employer via the employer, right, through one of their plans, that amount will get reported in box 12 under code W. And so we can see here for John, there was $1,500 contributed to his HSA during the year. And so that amount does get reflected on the return. Specifically, it goes on the form 8889 for HSA accounts. And so we can see the amount reported on line 9, employer contributions made to HSAs for 2023. We can see the amount of $1,500 flowing through from the W-2. All right, and then lastly here we have the state information. So we have the state wages. So this is an employee, an employer based in Florida, or sorry, not Florida, in Georgia. So Georgia has their Georgia source state wages there. All of it is going to be Georgia source. And then state income taxes withheld that are Georgia state income taxes withheld. So if we have a look back at John's return here, if he's doing his Georgia Form 500, his GA resident return would report all of his income, and he also needs to account for the credit available for Georgia taxes withheld. So if we scroll down to page 3 of the Georgia return here, we can see the tax that John owes for the year is the $4,075 figure. But now we need to account for how much state income tax was withheld on his W-2. And we can see there the amount is $4,200. So he would complete this section for the withholding. So he's got a W-2. There's the employer identification number, state ID, GA wages of $82,000, and Georgia taxes withheld of $4,200. So the total tax that John owed under these circumstances of $4,075. He's going to have a payment credit for $4,200. So the Georgia income tax withheld reported there on line 23. And notice it's enter tax withheld only and include any kind of W-2s or 1099s as they would apply. So there's the $4,200 credit amount. Now the last thing is this retirement plan box. So you notice that in box 13, we have 3 options for statutory employee retirement plan, or if you have any third-party sick pay. We do have the retirement plan box checked, and that is important because not only does that indicate how much contributions were made during the year, right? So we did make contributions, so it does make sense. But this is relevant for other things such as deductible IRA contributions. So if we go back to the return, let's say in this example, John wanted to make a contribution to his traditional IRA. Well, you can make contributions to a traditional IRA, and you can take a tax deduction for those amounts, but the amount of deductible contributions is limited depending on whether you were covered by a retirement plan at work. Right, so the IRA deduction worksheet here for John has to be completed because he is covered by a plan at work, right, as noted based on that checkbox on the W-2. If he wasn't covered by a plan at work, then generally his traditional IRA deduction isn't limited at all, right? But in this case, he is covered by the plan, so he has to do that worksheet. Okay, so that covers it for this video. I hope that was helpful, covering some of the basic items that we see on W-2s. As always, appreciate you watching the videos, and I look forward to seeing you on the next one. Thanks. Bye.